Thank you very much, Mr. Vasu. At the outset, let me also thank JMS Machinery and Mr. Haren Shankvi for giving me this opportunity to share my views on the challenges and the opportunities for biomedical waste management. I will like to sort of share certain important aspects related to this subject, starting from what is the role of plastics in the medical waste as a in the medical sector. What are the types of plastics used? Some of the opportunities in the recycling, and particularly in the current pandemic situation, what is the importance of waste management, and what should the key stakeholders be doing, particularly for the management of the biomedical waste, and some idea or some information on the benchmark activities. So when we say healthcare waste or waste in the medical part, then these are the various places where the waste is generated in the healthcare facilities, in the research centers, laboratories, home healthcare, now the COVID centers, and also the other places where the medical treatment is being done. So it is very important to manage the healthcare waste because it's a crucial component also for the environmental health protection. And if we talk about the waste composition, 70 to 90% of the waste that is produced in the healthcare sector is almost comparable to the domestic waste, and which is non-hazardous, and it is can under the category of general waste, whereas only 10 to 25% waste is can be called hazardous waste. Now, in the current situation, there are I have divided this presentation into non-COVID and COVID because particularly this has become a very important segmentation today. And if we say, when we say non-COVID, it is either pre-COVID or post-COVID. All non-COVID facilities have a different way of looking at the management of the waste, particularly. And this is something about the composition of, or role or contribution of plastics in the biomedical waste composition. So 85% of the waste, plastic waste that is generated in the hospital is generally the plastic waste, or it could be packaging waste also. This is the approximate consumption is a generation of the waste is linked to the bed size of the hospital. It could be anywhere between 0.5 kg per bed to 2.5 kg per bed, depending on the size of the hospital and the type of the hospital. Now, what are the plastics used in the, what kind of products are manufactured and plastics used in the hospital? And this is what I have given the list. For example, sterilization wrap is there, saline bottles are there, water pitchers are there, basin trays. So these are all commonly used, whether it could be in the post-COVID also or pre-COVID also. So these are the commonly used products made from plastics and generated as a waste in the hospitals. and they are made up of these different type of materials, starting from HDP, PP, and polystyrene, HIPS, EPS, and then the engineering plastic, various type of engineering plastics also. This is a share that I have already mentioned. Now, this is very important to know that any kind of waste generated in the hospital has to be handled and disposed of, or recycled, or handled as per the set guidelines by the Pollution Control Board, Central Pollution Control Board, and the monitoring is being done by the respective state control boards. And wherever there is a possibility of having non-infected, non-contaminated waste, even if before recycling, they have to be treated, and these are the various methods of treating: autoclaving or microwaving, hydroclaving, or a combination of these both, and also sterilization and shredding. So you cannot dispose of any waste without having undergone this treatment, which is a mandatory requirement from the Pollution Control Board. I'm not going into the details, but there are set guidelines as to when you are vacuum autoclaving or different types of autoclaving. There are guidelines what are the parameters to be managed for treatment of this waste. And as we know, there are also defined color codification for segregation of the waste, and the hospitals have to maintain all these containers, different type of containers. For example, for anatomical waste, for contaminated plastic waste, for glass waste, for metal scrap, and hazardous waste. Then other regeneration, general waste and biodegradable waste. So these are all different colored coding already defined by the Pollution Control Board. And as in all the recycling issues that we know, segregation is the key element of the quality of handling of the waste, and segregation at the source, particularly in the case of hospitals, it is at the ward level, or the generation of the waste is what is being done in the hospital. So there are guidelines. I am not going into the details of the guidelines, but I think when the presentation will be shared with you, or to those who are interested, you can very well go through this thing. And there are set guidelines for segregation also given by, and also the SOPs for the treatment also very clearly defined as to what is the sequence of treatment that has to be done for the handling or treatment of the biomedical waste. Now, the recycling element. See, we know that out of all the plastics used in the hospital, PVC has a major contribution because of the various properties of PVC, transparency, flexibility, what we can say, possibilities of making different hardness of the products. So because of this, the PVC is one of the major plastics used in the hospitals. And what is also important is that the products manufactured from PVC are in many cases not really infected or contaminated. I will give the examples of some of these products. So almost 25% of the total plastic waste generated, generated from the hospital is can be made from the non-contaminated PVC material. So if it is properly segregated at source, even at the ward level, then it can generate a very value-added product before recycling. These are some of the products like IV fluid bags, oxygen tubing, mask, oxygen mask, and also there are other products. Tubings also are there. So these are some of the products which are being uh, produced using PVC as a raw material. And to simplify the sorting and recycling, it is important to begin at the beginning of the designing stage, because when you design a product in such a way that as far as possible the the product that is made from a single product or a product materials which are easy to reproduce along with when they are reproduced they can be mixed and recycled. So this is one of the important points to be considered, that even when designing of the products, manufacturers have to take care of this aspect. This is the sequence of recycling, uh, sort of very broadly. I have given how starting from the designing of the products to the manufacturing of the recycled products out of the recycled granules. Now, see why management of the biomedical waste, other than the value addition and all other aspects. Uh, One of the important thing is the healthcare concerns for the uh, various stakeholders. So this is the pyramid. The staff and patient safety is the most important part. Uh, to is a result of the better waste management, followed by the environment protection, and the last is the cost realization out of the recycled material. Coming to the COVID waste, I'll introduce you the various types of. By now, most of us are familiar with the different types of products that are used with the COVID for the treatment of the COVID, respiratory products, PPEs, and all ICU, different types of ICU products. And in the PPEs also, you can see the cap and goggles, face mask, clothes, gown, shoe cover. Most of them have one or the other plastic material as a basic material, raw material. And it has become a very serious crisis these days because the volume is so huge that it's very difficult to properly manage the kind of waste that is generated out of these PPEs and other COVID-related products. It is estimated that in the from compared to the general situation, pre-COVID situation, the waste generated post-COVID is almost 6 times. So you can understand the seriousness of handling, recycling, and transportation of all waste generated by the COVID treatment. There are various actions suggested by the authorities for the handling of the COVID waste. For example, starting from the separation of the color-coded bins or bags in wards and maintaining proper segregation. Particularly suggested that you use double-layered bags, using 2 bags for collection, then color coding, and then separate record keeping and reporting. So there is a very elaborate guidelines given by the Pollution Control Board, Central Pollution Control Board, for handling, transportation, and management of the COVID-related waste. Now there are also beyond the COVID, the waste in the hospitals. There are other non-healthcare settings also where COVID waste is generated. For example, in the quarantine center, in the by the common biomedical waste manpower in the common biomedical waste facilities, and the different type of possibilities of generation of the virus or effect of virus is there if it is not properly handled. And it depends on the parameters like what is the kind of how much surface it is contaminated, then the virus shed from the individual, then the time an individual that a person spends in the setting where there is a possibility or potential of generation of the virus, and the what is the duration after which the exposure is made. So depending all that, the seriousness of the effect of the virus is there on the persons, and there are set guidelines of even handling of the waste by the persons who are in the non-COVID in the hospitals, but other than the hospitals where the COVID related patients or the people are there. Now, one of the important aspects is the recycling, particularly in the case of say PPE, say for example mask. So it is not suggested that in the current situation the PPE should be recycled, or particularly the mask should be recycled. But suppose in case there is a eventual emergency where there is the question of availability of masks or the PPEs, and if somebody has to recycle it or reuse it, then also the CDC and USA has given a guideline that in the worst case, if you have to do, there are certain processes under which if you pass the PPEs, then you give the kind of treatment, then you can recycle or reuse the PPE with particular care to be taken as suggested. These are all various guidelines, and just to give an indication on that, internationally there are already set systems of handling of the biomedical waste, starting from generation to the recycling, and there are associations of particularly of manufacturers of the medical plastic products, where they do a lot of training activities and help the hospitals in better managing the biomedical waste. So, and one of the name of this or such an organization is the Healthcare Plastic Recycling Council, and they work in different countries like Australia and some of the countries in Europe. I'm not going to the environmental, social, and other economic value of the generation plastic recycling that we know very well, and I hope with this I try to give a very brief overview on the subject, and maybe in the question and answer you can see if you can have some more information here. Thank you very much.